Alright, welcome back everybody to YouTube channel BTCTV, and we continue to make great interviews from Malta Blockchain Summit, and up front of me is Miko Matsumura. I don't need even to announce about you, everybody knows about you, so thanks for coming to us.
Well, it's a great pleasure.
I would like to talk more, as I mentioned, to talk about you like a person, right? Because that you are a very big influencer in blockchain industry. Everybody knows that you are passionate about that. But what is the normal daily life is looking in your life?
That's amazing. So daily life is, I do travel a good bit. So, definitely there's a lot of airplanes, and a lot of events not unlike this one. So, in a way, I tend to dislike routines. I've never been a really good office worker, so I think for me this works very nicely.
What gives you power to spend time, right? Because you're spending your time, your energy.
Yes.
What inspires you to do this?
To me, it's very much about finding your own personal mission.
Okay.
So for me, what I find is that I've had a history of trying out things. So I actually have a scientific training in my background. So for me, I really want to maximize my current form. Whatever has come before me in my history, I just really want to try to make the most of it. So that's really, my ethos. It's what drives me and, what fuels me. And I think one of the biggest resources that I treasure the most is enthusiasm.
You are a successful speaker, influencer. On the other hand, you are a regular person. How you balance your daily life with business that you will not lose out? How you balance that?
One thing that's very important to understand is almost every person who is a leadership figure in the blockchain industry seems to be an introvert. This is something that I've studied, so I've spoken with so many people, and the vast majority of them are introverted people. So really, the thing that is important for me, for example, is, I maintain a daily meditation practice, which keeps me grounded, and when I talk about things like creating time, part of it has to do with maintaining focus, right? So I think, the focus is really key.
But you see changes before and after using this?
Unquestionably. One of the things that's amazing about it is it teaches you the limits of what you can control, and it provides a strong connection with the world as it is.
Maybe you remember what is the best book you read in your life, and why?
I think the most influential book was the Iliad by Homer, so the Greek epic poet. And it's about a soldier who refuses to fight, right? And in a way, it represents the root of Western spiritual thought and philosophy, right? Which is, it's really an amazing, book in terms of the roots of literature. So I think that was a super influential book for me.
What is your thought about these 10 years in the past and about 10 years what can be in the future? Because if to think about long perspective, 10 years is not so big time, it's not big number of years, right?
Yes, if you go back 11 years, Apple was just introducing the iPhone.
Yes, correct.
So if you just imagine, okay, there's no iPhone. Because obviously along with that came things like Android, and of course things like real significant app store, right? And then this really notion of consumer computing, and then it became almost like identity system. So the enabling technology is really transformational, and of course apps. But when you really kind of like look at Bitcoin itself, the way I love framing this is to say about 10 years ago today, the internet started printing its own money, right? And this is really what's revolutionary from my lens. In the next 10 years, as you see the acceleration of the adoption of this generation of technologies, for sure we're going to see a world utterly transformed by what I call open source money.
Okay. You are saying about transformation of money, but don't be afraid that countries and government will fight with that. They don't want to accept that.
Yes, so the thing that's fascinating is that when you look at open source software and how it has consumed all proprietary software, and I say all because there's still a thin wrapper on top that's proprietary, the thing that's fascinating is that the proprietary software industry is worth more in total market cap than it's ever been worth before, and 90% of the code is open source. So if you look at that pattern in proprietary, what we expect will happen is the same thing, right? Which is that we expect to see proprietary monies being worth more. So the global economy will become worth more, and in no way will any proprietary government money be eliminated. It will rather be just resting on top of this platform, right? Because money is software. Right? So, you know, if we conclude that money is software, we can't help but to conclude that it will inevitably become open source software. But the resistance is something that is very, very hard to stop. And the reason why is that open source software is fueled by consent, meaning essentially that the premise is if you don't like it, use another one. Right? So ultimately it's about the freedom of the world's people to choose the financial infrastructure that serves them the best. And, you know, when you say the word Bitcoin, what you're talking about is a continuously evolvable and forkable code base, you know, that in fact serves multiple use cases already and may serve many, many use cases in the future. So the point I'm trying to make is that this thing evolves to acquire the consent of users, and it evolves in that fashion because it wants to serve. And the reason why I say it wants to, and I give it this property, is because if you fork and make something that's greedy or make something that's less efficient, zero users will use it, right? So the point being that it's really like a shark, like it can only swim forward, it can't stop and rest, and it can't swim backwards, right? So because of that, I think open source money will kind of perpetually be driven and fueled by consent. And it's very, very difficult for especially democratic governments to block people from doing what they naturally want, right? In large numbers, right? So in mass, if they want to do it, it's very hard to prevent people, you know. So I think that's my feeling. It's essentially inevitable.
Right now, I see there is a little bit switch from utility tokens to security tokens, right? In your opinion, what will be more future for security tokens or for utility tokens from your point of view? Well,
so to me, that schism is very kind of, it's awkward. And the reason why I think it's awkward is that if you ask the Securities and Exchange Commission, like, what is a security token? They'll essentially say everything is a security token, right? So it's hard to have a good conversation in this way. To me, I like to talk about asset-backed tokens, right? Which are essentially redeemable assets, and those are kind of the securities class. And then there's something that's more like services-backed. So, you know, you get the token to access a service, and I consider those to be more the utility class of token, right? So if you split it into those groups, like what you're going to expect to see is you're going to expect to see asset-backed tokens representing every single tradable asset in the earth, right? Which means that minimum 10 trillion, if not 20, 100 trillion, however many trillions of value will be joined into the crypto ecosystem. But in a sense, it's just the natural evolution of a cryptographic token, which is essentially to swallow all recording of ownership. Right? So when you transfer ownership and settlement into cryptographic tokens, it's really just a continuing evolution. So Lloyd Blankfein, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, said that ever since Richard Nixon removed the bimetallic standard from the US dollar, right, there's no reason why the further evolution of that should not be a digital currency, right? So what we're talking about is the evolution of money. And when you evolve towards something, when you look at something like the US dollar, it's backed by everything and nothing, just like Bitcoin. So the thing that's really interesting when you talk about security or asset-backed tokens is those will be backed by everything, right? And when you look at the so-called utility token or service-backed tokens, this will really be increasingly the realm of sort of startup investment. So I think that that's going to be a professional asset class, but the so-called utility token is the highest chance of being a 20x or 100x or 1,000x or a 10,000x return on investment. So that's where, from my venture fund's perspective, that's the place where we're going to see the most extraordinary returns and the biggest risk in return.
Right now, many think that blockchain is like Web 3.0, right? We have Web 1 when everything started with internet, then mobile apps came, iPhone, iPad, right? And now blockchain. Do you agree with that? This is like a third generation of internet, or you will give maybe another name to it?
My feeling is this. First of all, I'm really not a big fan of like 1.0, 2.0 naming, but if we were to go there, I would definitely call this maybe 2.0. And the reason why I say so is I was never much of a believer that the web versioned itself, but the thing that's super interesting to me is, typically in the normal internet, you're essentially transmitting a copy of a thing, right? Whereas when you introduce this concept of, a blockchain-based crypto asset, you're actually transferring the thing itself, right? So you actually have, I think, what's engineered scarcity, and because of that, you have a completely different property of the internet that you can exploit. So to me, like, the thing that's powerful and amazing about this new internet is that it really allows the transfer of the thing itself, which means that you can actually use it to transmit financial and economic power, which, I think is very unprecedented.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Miko. Can we make, maybe, if you agree, a little bit challenge with our subscribers that they will ask interesting questions to you, and you will select maybe one question which will be interesting, and let's say that you will send him a book, Bhagavad Gita, or any of your favorite book?
I think for blockchain, one of my favorite books is The Book of Satoshi, which is an amazing book.
And maybe with your signature.
That sounds great. I would be honored just to sign such a book, obviously, because Satoshi is a legend.
Just want to confirm that don't forget to subscribe to YouTube channel BTCTV, start asking interesting questions below this video, and Miko will select the top one who will be a winner, and will send him a book with your signature. And the last one part is very quickly questions and very quickly answers. For example, like Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Well, I don't never think of it as either or, but at the moment, Bitcoin.
Okay. Silicon Valley or Malta?
At the moment, Malta.
Okay. Indian philosophy or American Eastern philosophy?
At the moment, Indian.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot for staying with us, for your time and sharing with me this information. And again, thanks for watching this video, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.